Today we are very, very fortunate to have His Grace Shivananda Prabhu on Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhu is an early disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He is a pioneer of starting the preaching movement in Europe. He went single-handedly to Germany and started the preaching there. Prabhuji and Madan Mohan Mohini Mataji has been pillars of ISKCON movement. They have served in various places, and right now they are in Prabhupada village serving their lordships Parama Karuna Sri Gaurnitai. So we are very, very fortunate to have Prabhuji's association. Please accept our humble obeisances, Prabhuji, and please
accept my obeisances to all of you. I'm very fortunate to be able to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam. That's my great fortune. And it's my great fortune also to have all of your association. And so before I begin speaking on Srimad Bhagavatam, we usually say some prayers from the Bhagavatam about Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'll recite those. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat. Before uttering this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we offer our respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. And I also offer my very humble and very respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who has very kindly translated and commented upon the Srimad Bhagavatam for our benefit. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttam shloke bhakti bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance at the Srimad Bhagavatam class and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, everything that is inauspicious within the heart is practically destroyed to nil, and loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental verses, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. So this morning I was asked to speak on Canto 4 is the creation of the fourth order. And this particular chapter is full of information about the genealogical table of the daughters of Manu, and we're very close to the end of the chapter, so I thought what I would do is I would read the verses till the end of the chapter, and then we could have a chapter review. And then there's some other points that we can make in regard to this chapter. So I'll begin with text number 60. The predominating deity of fire begot in his wife Svaha 3 children named Pavaka, Pavamana, and Suchi, who exist by eating the oblations offered to the fire of sacrifice. There's a purport here by Srila Prabhupada. After describing the descendants of the 13 wives of Dharma, who were all daughters of Daksha, Maitreya now describes the 14th daughter of Daksha, Svaha, and her 3 sons. Oblations offered in the sacrificial fire are meant for the demigods, and on behalf of the demigods, the 3 sons of Agni and Svaha, namely Pavaka, Pavamana, and Suchi, accept the oblations. Then going on to the next text, 61. From those 3 sons, another 45 descendants were generated, who were also fire gods. The total number of fire gods is therefore 49, including the fathers and the grandfather. Purport. The grandfather is Agni, and the sons are Pavaka, Pavamana, and Suchi. Counting these 4 plus 45 grandsons, there are altogether 49 different fire gods. Usually in Krishna consciousness, we think of Agni as the fire god, but it appears that there are 49 fire gods altogether. So these 49 fire gods are the beneficiaries of the oblations offered in the Vedic sacrificial fire by impersonalist brahmanas. That's the next verse, 62. Purport. Impersonalists who perform Vedic fruitive sacrifices are attracted to the various fire gods and offer oblations in their name. The 49 fire gods are described herewith. And this is text number 63. The Agni Sattvatas, the Barhishadas, and the Saumyas, and the Ajapas are the Pittas. They are either Sagnika or Niragnika. The wife of all these Pittas is Svadha, who was the daughter of King Daksha. Svadha, who was offered, this is text number 64, Svadha, who was offered to the Pittas, begot 2 daughters named Vayuna and Darini, both of whom were impersonalists and were expert in transcendental and Vedic knowledge. So I found it interesting here that these were ladies and they were considered impersonalists. And usually I'm accustomed from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes to regard impersonalists as men. But here we have some ladies, 2 daughters, who were impersonalists. But they were very expert in transcendental and Vedic knowledge. So it's interesting. So we'll go on to text 65. The 16th daughter, whose name was Sati, was the wife of Lord Shiva. She could not produce a child, although she always faithfully engaged in the service of her husband. And then text 66. The reason is that Sati's father Daksha used to rebuke Lord Shiva in spite of Shiva's faultlessness. Consequently, before attaining a mature age, Sati gave up her body by dint of yogic mystic power. The purport here by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Shiva, being the head of all mystic yogis, never even constructed a home for his residence. Sati was the daughter of a great king, Daksha, and because his youngest daughter Sati selected as her husband Lord Shiva, King Daksha was not very much satisfied with her. Therefore, whenever she met her father, he unnecessarily criticized her husband, although Lord Shiva was faultless. Because of this, before attaining a mature age, Sati gave up the body given by her father Daksha, and therefore she could not produce a child. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 1st chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Genealogical Table of the Daughters of Manu. So what I usually do when we finish a chapter is I read over the verses, and then we have an idea of what we covered in the past. I think it's only been about a week on this chapter. You go through quickly because it's this one produced this children, and this children produced that children, and in the Western world, when they're speaking, this is similar in the Bible also. It's called the begats. This one begat that one, and that one begat this one, and that one begat this one, and it goes on and on and on, like that. And so I'll read the verses over so we can review the chapter, and then we'll tomorrow we can go on with beginning the next chapter, chapter 2, which is a continuation of what's at the end of this chapter. When we can speak about that also. So text number 1, Sri Maitreya said, Svayambhuva Manu begot 3 daughters in his wife Satarupa, and their names were Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. Akuti had 2 brothers, but in spite of her brothers, King Swayambhuva Manu handed her over to Prajapati Ruchi on the condition that the son born of her be returned to Manu as his son. This he did in consultation with his wife, Shatarupa. Ruchi, who was very powerful in his Brahminical qualifications, Ruchi, who was very powerful in his Brahminical qualifications and was appointed one of the progenitors of the living entities, begot 1 son and 1 daughter by his wife Akuti. Of the 2 children born of Akuti, the male child was directly an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his name was Jagya, which is another name of Lord Vishnu. The female child was a partial incarnation of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, the eternal consort of Lord Vishnu. Swayambhuva Manu very gladly brought home the beautiful boy named Jagya, and Ruchi, his son-in-law, kept with him the daughter Dakshina. The Lord of the ritualistic performance of Jagya later married Dakshina, who was anxious to have the personality of Godhead as her husband. And in this wife, the Lord also was very much pleased to beget 12 children. The 12 boys born of Jagya and Dakshina were named Tosha, Pratosha, Santosha, Bhadra, Shanti, Idaspati, Idma, Kavi, Vibhu, Svana, Sudeva, and Rochana. During the time of Swayambhuva Manu, these sons all became the demigods, collectively named the Tushitas. Marichi became the head of the 7 rishis, and Jagya became the king of the demigods, Indra. Swayambhuva Manu's 2 sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapada, became very powerful kings, and their sons and grandsons spread all over the 3 worlds during that period. So later on in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll return to Priyavrata and Uttanapada, and they continue on with more stories. My dear son, Swayambhuva Manu handed over his very dear daughter Devahuti to Kardama Muni. I have already spoken to you about them, and you have heard about them almost in full. Swayambhuva Manu handed over his daughter Prasuti to the son of Brahma named Daksha, who was also one of the progenitors of the living entities. The descendants of Daksha are spread throughout the 3 worlds. You have already been informed about the 9 daughters of Kardama Muni, who were handed over to 9 different sages. I shall now describe the descendants of those 9 daughters. Please hear from me. Kardama Muni's daughter Kala, who was married to Marichi, gave birth to 2 children whose names were Kasyapa and Purnima. Their descendants are spread all over the world. My dear Vidura, of the 2 sons, Kasyapa and Purnima, Purnima begot 3 children, namely Viraj, Vishvaga, and Devakulya. Of these 3, Devakulya was the water which washed the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, and which later on transformed into the Ganges of the heavenly planets. Anasuya, the wife of Atri Muni, gave birth to 3 very famous sons, Soma, Dattatreya, and Durbasa, who were partial representations of Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma. Soma was a partial representation of Lord Vishnu, and Durbasa was a partial representation of Lord Shiva. After hearing this, Vidura inquired from Maitreya, My dearest master, how is it that the 3 deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, who are the creator, maintainer, and destroyer of the whole creation, became the offspring of the wife of Atri Muni? Maitreya said, When Lord Brahma ordered Atri Muni to create generations after marrying Anasuya, Atri Muni and his wife went to perform severe austerities in the valley of the mountain known as Riksha. In that mountain valley flows a river named Nirvindya. On the bank of the river are many ashok trees and other plants full of palasa flowers, and there is always a sweet sound of water flowing from a waterfall. The husband and wife reached that beautiful place. There the great sage concentrated his mind by the yogic breathing exercises, and thereby controlling all attachment. He remained standing on one leg only, eating nothing but air, and stood there on one leg for 100 years. Okay, so this is someone who is very expert in the performance of yoga, and he was standing on one leg and he was eating nothing but air, and he stood there for 100 years. Whew, boy, these personalities are something special. He was thinking, may the Lord of the universe, of whom I have taken shelter, kindly be pleased to offer me a son exactly like him. While Atri Muni was engaged in these severe austerities, a blazing fire came out of his head by virtue of his breathing exercise, and that fire was seen by the three principal deities of the three worlds. At that time, the three deities approached the hermitage of Atri Muni, accompanied by the denizens of the heavenly planets, such as the celestial beauties, the Gandharvas, the Siddhas, the Vidyadharas, and the Nagas. Thus they entered the ashram of the great sage, who had become famous by his austerities. The sage was standing on one leg, but as soon as he saw the three deities had appeared before him, he was so pleased to see them all together that despite great difficulty he approached them on one leg. Thereafter he began to offer prayers to the three deities, who were seated on different carriers, a bull, a swan, and Garuda, and who held in their hands a drum, kusha grass, and a discus. The sage offered them his respects by falling down like a stick. Those are called dandavats. Atri Muni was very greatly pleased to see that the three devas were gracious towards him. His eyes were dazzled by the effulgence of their bodies, and therefore he closed his eyes for the time being. But since his heart was already attracted by the deities, somehow or other he gathered his senses, and with folded hands and sweet words, he began to offer prayers to the predominating deities of the universe. The great sage Atri said, "O Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva, you have divided yourself into three bodies by accepting the three modes of material nature, as you do in every millennium for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all of you and beg to inquire whom of you three I have called by my prayer. I called for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, desiring a son like him, and I thought of him only. But although he is far beyond the mental speculation of man, all three of you have come here. Kindly let me know how you have come, for I am greatly bewildered about this." The great sage Maitreya continued, "Upon hearing Atri Muni speak in that way, the three great deities smiled, and they replied in the following sweet words. The three deities told Atri Muni, "Dear Brahmana, you are perfect in your determination, and therefore as you have decided, so it will happen. It will not happen otherwise. We are all the same person upon whom you were meditating, and therefore we have all come to you. You will have sons who will represent a partial manifestation of our potency, and because we desire all good fortune for you, those sons will glorify your reputation throughout the world." Thus, while the couple looked on, the three deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, disappeared from that place after bestowing upon Atri Muni the benediction. Thereafter, from the partial representation of Brahma, the moon god was born of them. From the partial representation of Vishnu, the great mystic Dattatreya was born. And from the partial representation of Shankara, Lord Shiva, Durbasa was born. Now you may hear from me of the many sons of Angira. Angira's wife, Shraddha, gave birth to 4 daughters named Sinivali, Kuhu, Raka, and Anumati. Besides these 4 daughters, she also had another 2 sons. One of them was known as Utatya, and the other was the learned scholar Brihaspati. Pulasya begot in his wife Havirbu one son of the name Agastya, who in his next birth became Daragini. Besides him, Pulasya begot another very great and saintly son, whose name was Vishrava. Vishrava had 2 wives. The first wife was Idavida, from whom Kuvera, the master of all yakshas, was born, and the next wife was named Keshini, from whom 3 sons were born, Ravana, Kumbhakarna, and Bibhishan. Gati, the wife of the sage Pulaha, gave birth to 3 sons, named Karmashreshta, Variyan, and Sahishnu, and all of them were great sages. Kratu's wife Kriya gave birth to 60,000 great sages, named Valakilyas. All these sages were greatly advanced in spiritual knowledge, and their bodies were illuminated by such knowledge. As you may recall, in the Mahabharata, there's explanations about the Valakilyas, and in their dealings with, I believe it's Lord Indra. And they were very small sages. They were tiny, but they were very great personalities. And they were, if you can imagine giving birth to 60,000 sages. Well, we have difficulty giving birth to 1 son or daughter. What to speak of 60,000? The great sage Vashishta begot in his wife Urja, sometimes called Arundhati, 7 spotlessly great sages, headed by the sage named Chitraketu. The names of these 7 sages are as follows: Chitraketu, Surochi, Viraja, Mitra, Ulbana, Vasubridhyana, and Dyuman. Some other very competent sons were born from Vashishta's other wife. Chiti, wife of the sage Atharva, gave birth to a son named Asvashira by accepting a great vow called Dadyancha. Now you may hear from me about the descendants of the sage Bhrigu. So sometimes when we're going through these chapters like this, it's kind of hard to remember who is that, who is this, who was that, who and who gave birth, and then, so sometimes it's a little confusing, but also it's very beneficial for us to hear their names, because they're all very great personalities, and we become purified just by hearing their names. So let's go on. The sage Bhrigu was highly fortunate. In his wife, known as Khyati, he begot 2 sons, named Datta and Vidatta, and 1 daughter named Shri, who was very much devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now you can also all remember the story in the Krishna book of Bhrigu Muni. That Bhrigu Muni was once commissioned by a number of sages to go and see who Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, or Lord Brahma possessed was the greatest. And so at that time they didn't know about Lord Vishnu being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so they sent Bhrigu to do that. And then, as you may recall, Bhrigu Muni, when he approached Lord Brahma, who was his father, he didn't offer his obeisances, because he was testing to see which of these deities possesses the quality of tolerance and patience in the greatest degree, and then he would be considered to be the greatest personality. So when he came into the presence of Lord Brahma, he specifically didn't offer his obeisances, which the son is supposed to do. And he looked at Lord Brahma to see how he was affected by that. And Lord Brahma became angry at him, but he controlled his anger. So then he took note of that. And then he went to see Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is considered his brother. And when Lord Shiva was very glad to see him, and he was coming to give him a big hug, and Bhrigu Muni said, "Oh, don't you touch me. You smear your body with the ashes of the crematorium. I don't want you to touch me." And sorry, I'm paraphrasing what he said. And so Lord Shiva became very angry very quickly, and he was going to kill Bhrigu Muni. But then his wife pacified him and freed Bhrigu Muni from that. And then he went to see Lord Vishnu, and as Prabhupada explains in the Krishna book, he was performing offensive activities, and Prabhupada mentions at that place, there's offenses you can perform by your mind, there's offenses you can perform by your words, and then you can be offensive with your body. And he performed to Lord Vishnu the most severe type of offense by touching his foot to Lord Vishnu's chest. And lo and behold, Lord Vishnu was completely undisturbed. He didn't even get angry. He didn't get upset. He didn't become disturbed at all. And he got up from where he was, and he seated Bhrigu Muni very nicely, and he started massaging his feet. And he said, "I'm really sorry that your very soft foot has touched my stone-like chest, and I'm afraid you may have become hurt. And so please excuse me." And so he was massaging the feet of Bhrigu Muni. So then Bhrigu Muni understood that, oh my goodness, Lord Vishnu, he possesses the quality of tolerance to the complete degree. And so then he went back to the congregation of sages and said, "Okay, Lord Vishnu, it's Lord Vishnu. He's the greatest. He's the best. He's." Of course, we understand. We know that Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in that way, Bhrigu Muni was busy, and that's why you see Lord Jagannath, just under his face, his head, there is a foot. And that is the foot of Bhrigu Muni that touched Lord Vishnu's chest. And so, in that way, Lord Vishnu proved to Bhrigu Muni and to everyone else that he possesses the quality of tolerance to an extreme degree. So, of course, we shouldn't take advantage of Lord Vishnu's tolerance. We should render service to Lord Vishnu and Lord Krishna. But that's what happened with Bhrigu Muni. So, we'll go on. The sage Meru had 2 daughters named Ayati and Niyati, whom he gave in charity to Datta and Vidatta. Ayati and Niyati gave birth to 2 sons, Mrikanda and Prana. From Mrikanda, Markandeya Muni was born, and from Prana, the sage Vedashira, whose son was Ushana, Sukracharya, also known as Kavi. Thus, Kavi also belonged to the descendants of the Bhrigu dynasty. My dear Vidura, the population of the universe was thus increased by the descendants of these sages and the daughters of Kardama. Anyone who hears a description of this dynasty with faith will be relieved from all sinful reactions. Another of Manu's daughters, known as Prasuti, married the son of Brahma named Daksha. Daksha begot 16 very beautiful daughters with lotus-like eyes in his wife Prasuti. Of these 16 daughters, 13 were given in marriage to Dharma, and 1 daughter was given to Agni. One of the remaining 2 daughters was given in charity to the Pitriloka, where she resides very amicably, and the other was given to Lord Shiva, who is the deliverer of sinful persons from material entanglement. The names of the 13 daughters of Daksha who were given to Dharma are Shraddha, Maitri, Daya, Shanti, Tushti, Pushti, Kriya, Unnati, Buddhi, Medha, Titiksha, Hri, and Murti. These 13 daughters produced the following sons. Shraddha gave birth to Shubha. Maitri produced Prashada. Daya gave birth to Abhaya. Shanti gave birth to Sukha. Tushti gave birth to Mudha. Pushti gave birth to Shmaya. Kriya gave birth to Yoga. Unnati gave birth to Darpa. Buddhi gave birth to Artha. Medha gave birth to Smriti. Titiksha gave birth to Kshema. And Hri gave birth to Prashraya. Murti, a reservoir of all respectable qualities, gave birth to Sri Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On the occasion of the appearance of Narayan, the entire world was full of joy. Everyone's mind became tranquil, and thus in all directions the air, the rivers, and the mountains became pleasant. In the heavenly planets, bands began to play, and they showered flowers from the sky. The pacified sages chanted Vedic prayers. The denizens of heaven, known as the Gandharvas and Kinnaras, sang. The beautiful damsels of the heavenly planets danced. And in this way, at the time of the appearance of Narayan, all signs of good fortune were visible. Just at that time, great demigods like Brahma also offered their respectful prayers. The demigods said, "Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the transcendental personality of Godhead, who created as his external energy this cosmic manifestation, which is situated in him as the air and clouds are situated in space, and who has now appeared in the form of Narayan Rishi in the house of Dharma. Let that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is understood by truly authorized Vedic literature, and who has created peace and prosperity to destroy all calamities of the created world, be kind enough to bestow his glance upon the demigods. His merciful glance can supersede the beauty of the spotless lotus flower, which is the home of the goddess of fortune." Maitreya said, "O Vidura, thus the demigods worshipped with prayers the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appearing as the sage Narayan. The Lord glanced upon them with mercy, and then departed for Gandhamadana hill. That Narayan Rishi, who is a partial expansion of Krishna, has now appeared in the dynasties of Yadu and Kuru in the forms of Krishna and Arjuna respectively, to mitigate the burden of the world." So as you may recall, also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's the story of Cupid, who went to try and dissuade Narayan Rishi from performing his penances and austerities, perhaps not knowing that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Cupid brought with him some very beautiful celestial maidens to entice Narayan. And as you may recall from the story, when Cupid arrived there with all these heavenly beautiful girls, from Narayan were expanded other beautiful girls, and they were more beautiful and put to shame all the girls that Cupid brought with him to entice Narayan Rishi. And one of them was the leader of, she was given in charity by Narayan to Cupid, and she was given to Lord Indra, and I can't remember her name, but she was very, she was, when Arjuna came to the heavenly planet, she enticed him, and he didn't. She was considered to be the mother of the Yadu dynasty and the Pandavas, so he respected her. And so she is considered to be one of the favorites of Indra. She was given in charity by Narayan Rishi to Indra like that. So this story is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam also. So although there may be very many beautiful young ladies in this material world, Krishna is the source of all of the beauty, and so we can appreciate Krishna in that understanding. So then it goes on to say, the predominating deity of fire begot in his wife Svaha 3 children named Pavata, Pavamana, and Suchi, who exist by eating the oblations offered to the fire of sacrifice. From these 3 sons, another 45 descendants were generated, who were also fire gods. The total number of fire gods is therefore 49, including the father and the grandfather. These 49 fire gods are the beneficiaries of the oblations offered in the Vedic sacrificial fire by impersonalist brahmanas. The Agnisvatas, the Barhishadas, the Saumyas, and the Ajapayas are the Pittas. They are either Sagnika or Niragnika. We don't get an explanation about that, unfortunately, here, so I'm sorry I can't fill you in on that. The wife of all these Pittas is Svadha, who is the daughter of King Daksha. Svadha, who was offered to the Pittas, begot 2 daughters, namely Vayuna and Darini, who were both impersonalists and were very expert in transcendental and Vedic knowledge. The 16th daughter, whose name was Sati, was the wife of Lord Shiva. She could not produce a child, although she always faithfully engaged in the service of her husband. The reason is that Sati's father Daksha used to rebuke Lord Shiva in spite of Shiva's faultlessness. Consequently, before attaining a mature age, Sati gave up her body by dint of yogic mystic powers. And that's the end of this particular chapter. But one thing that stands out to me in reading this is that it mentions that by hearing all of these different things, one can become free, be relieved from all sinful reactions. It says, my dear Vidura, the population of the universe was thus increased by the descendants of these sages and the daughters of Kardama. Anyone who hears the descriptions of this dynasty with faith will be relieved from all sinful reactions. Another of Manu's daughters, known as Prasuti, married the son of Brahma named Daksha. So, as we go through the Srimad Bhagavatam, we may consider it a little bit boring, hearing all these different names, and this one begot this one, and this one begot that one, and that one got this one, and sons and daughters, and this and that. But, as it mentions here, anyone who hears the descriptions of this dynasty with faith will be relieved from all sinful reactions. So this is very purifying. So we can keep that in mind. And we can also note very nicely that this ending up this chapter in where it's being described about Sati and Lord Shiva, this then inspired Maharaj Parikshit to begin the next chapter, where he asks, how is this that Daksha could neglect his daughter Sati, and how could she give up her body by yogic mystic power? How would this happen? So then this way, Maharaj Parikshit was inspired to ask about this, and he explained. And then now we have a whole bunch of chapters coming about Daksha and Lord Shiva, and in this way we also learn to respect Lord Shiva and respect great devotees. We understand that Lord Shiva is the greatest of all Vaishnavas, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, and he's always thinking about Krishna, always meditating on Krishna. He's always absorbed in that way. And he is also completely faultless. But we see here that Daksha was finding fault with Lord Shiva. And so this was the cause of a great difficulty that came about when Daksha was performing his sacrifice, and his daughter immolated herself, and then Lord Shiva came and, or not Lord Shiva himself, but Lord Shiva's representatives came and destroyed the sacrificial arena and actually killed Daksha. And then Lord Brahma pacified Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva was completely undisturbed. And then he gave Daksha back his life. And Daksha offered very beautiful, very nice prayers to Lord Shiva and apologized to Lord Shiva. And then in this way, the narrations from Srimad Bhagavatam are going on by the inspiration of Maharaj Parikshit and the speaking by Sukadeva Goswami of all these personalities. So although we may find it a little bit boring going through all these different personalities and who they are, of course, there's many side stories involving these personalities also. But at the same time, we may find it a little bit boring, but Maharaj Parikshit, he got inspired by hearing this, and it caused him to ask questions about all these things. And then in this way, we get so many wonderful stories from Srimad Bhagavatam coming up here in the next few chapters about Lord Shiva and Daksha and all these different interesting situations and stories that appear. So that's where I would like to stop. And tomorrow, the next giver of Bhagavatam class can begin with chapter 2. Daksha curses Lord Shiva. And although some of these things we may not want to hear that Daksha was saying, and this is part of the story of Srimad Bhagavatam, so we hear it, and then we can learn also very much from this, because we have to learn how to be respectful to great personalities like Lord Shiva, and be very careful in our devotional service, and try and remember that we have to be respectful, and we have to not find any fault with Lord Shiva, who is actually a great faultless personality and the greatest of all Vaishnavas. So that's the lesson that we can learn from all of this. And hearing about this genealogical table, it can purify us, even though we may think that, this is a little bit boring. But we can get purified by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and hearing the story of the genealogical table of the daughters of Manu. Okay, that's what I had to say. I don't know if anyone has any questions, comments, corrections, observations they would like to put forward.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Haribol, Mataji.
Yes. Thank you for the class, Prabhu. I just have one quick question. In the class today, we heard so many of them, who is the child of who and all of that. And one of the wives of the Rishi is basically the three of them, Kumbhakarna, Ravana, and Vibhishana. Yes. So I'm just thinking, what kind of a person would want a child who is going to be, enemy to the Lord?
Yeah,
and, So, I'm just thinking, Prabhu, because all of the other wives have got, pious,
very pious.
Right.
Yeah.
So then why only this lady?
I'll read the verse over again. Vishrava had two wives. The first wife was Idavida, from whom Kuvera, the master of all Yakshas, was born. And the next wife was named Keshini, from whom 3 sons were born, Ravana, Kumbhakarna, and Bibhishan. So we're not getting here in this story the whole explanation of how this happens. And I'm not fully aware of how all this takes place, but we see that this has something to do with the Lord appearing as Lord Ramachandra. So we understand also that the Jai and Vijay took 3 births as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and then as Shishupal and Dantavakra. But also we see here that Bibhishan was born from Keshini, and we understand from the Ramayana that Vibhishan was a very great devotee of the Lord. So we have to research further. I'm not familiar with the story. In many of these stories, there's many backstories which explain about, this happened and that happened, and I am unfortunately not so learned about how this all took place. But Ravana, Kumbhakarna took birth from Keshini, and of course this all facilitated the Lord's pastime and the Lord's appearing as Lord Ramachandra. But the details of it I don't know. But you might be able to find some other class giver who was more learned than myself and knows all these different backstories. And it's very interesting. I love all the details that are involved in these things. One might also ask, well, how is it that Kamsa took birth? I know from this particular story with Kamsa, how Devaki could give birth to Kamsa, who was the brother of the mother of Krishna. So from that particular story, I understand that there was once a demon who found Devaki extremely beautiful, and he took the form of Vasudeva and procreated with her, and because of that, Kamsa was born. So I know that particular story of that, and then Vasudeva had other sons and from Devaki also, and had Lord Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Haribo?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, go ahead, Mataji.
Yes, this is Kamuntaki Dasi. Could you explain, you said Vasudeva and Devaki gave birth to Kamsa?
Yes, because, excuse me, I'm sorry, not Vasudeva and Devaki.
Really,
Vasudeva.
Prasen's wife gave birth to Kamsa.
Yeah. Okay. And so the question is sometimes asked, how could Devaki have a brother like Kamsa? And that was because of a demon.
Oh, okay. Like Kamsa, okay.
Of a demon taking a form and being attracted to the wife to the mother of Devaki. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that.
Because so much sound here in the range, so that's why I couldn't hear properly. That's why I'm wondering. That's why I'm...
Oh, no, that was my mistake.
Yes.
But
Please forgive
the
me.
mother and...
Yeah.
It was Devaki who had Kamsa as a brother, and the mother of Devaki was very beautiful and had attracted a demoniac personality who then had the power to take a form that he wanted, and he took the form of the father of Devaki and had procreated with Devaki's mother. And so then that's how Kamsa first took birth, because it was from a demon. So sometimes the demons, they have the power and the ability to take whatever form they like, and that's what that particular demon did. And that's how Kamsa, who was a very great demon, could take birth in the family with Devaki and be her brother. So there are all kinds of backstories here, and I'm not familiar with the Keshini and what happened with how Ravana and Kumbhakarna took birth from her, but it may be a similar situation, but all these different things are arranged by Krishna, and so many different amazing pastimes. We were just speaking this morning with one of the devotees that we have Draupadi and Drishtadyumna, who appeared during Krishna's pastimes. They took birth out of the sacrificial fire. Oh my goodness! I mean, how and when Draupadi took birth, it was announced from the heavens that this woman is being born for the destruction of the Kshatriya race, and because of Duryodhana and misbehavior with Draupadi. There was so much killing went on, and they were all wiped out. So these amazing things happen. So I'm sure that there was another situation. I don't know the details. I'm desirous of knowing the details because all these details are so much interesting. And but the details of Keshini giving birth to Ravana, Kumbhakarna, and Bibhishan, I don't know, unfortunately. I'll have to find someone who's more familiar with it.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandavat.
Yes, maybe you would like
I'm not qualified, but two things. One thing you mentioned about that Apsara that was produced by Narayan Rishi, which even the other put to fate.
Yes.
Her name was.
Yes. Her name was. Her name was what?
Urvashi.
Urvashi. Yes. Urvashi. Yes.
Yes.
You're
Urvashi.
Right.
And the Urvashi, because Narayan Rishi hit his thigh and produced her. So the Ur in Sanskrit means the thigh. So she was produced from the thigh. So her name was Urvashi. That's one thing. The other thing is, in the Bhagavatam and other scriptures, the background, as you said, there are backgrounds, and sometimes the backgrounds are given very elaborately, sometimes they are not.
Yes.
So, and also in Bhagavatam, if you read, I'm not qualified to tell the august audience here, but it deals with all the situations one can see, you can find in life. So many times, very pious people get very impious children. It's not in their control, but there are some reasons for it. And if you see that Ravana, Vibhishan, we all know, was a great devotee of Lord Rama. But Ravana was also a very great devotee.
Oh, yes.
Let's not mistake it. He was also a great Brahmin, a great devotee. He knew all the 4 Vedas and the Puranas and everything. Yes. He was worshipful, but he fell down because of his ego, ahankar, and so so that's another thing I wanted to mention. And of course, you can have children like Kumbhakarna. He had some mental disorder that he slept for 6 months and age. The other thing I want to tell that Devaki and Kamsa were cousins. They were not real brothers. So. Devaki was born from one brother, and actually the father of Kamsa and father of Devaki were brothers. So they were cousins. They're not the real brother and sister, but
not real brother
and
cousin
sister. Yeah.
Okay.
So just these few points that I remembered I wanted to tell, and Kaumudiki Mataji is right, in her comment. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't know all the stories. I'm eager to learn them. But I don't don't have everything. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I love all the details. The details I find really interesting. Okay. Anything else that anyone would like to mention? Maybe it's time. It's getting to be around 8:30. So it's a weekday, and you may all have to go to work and do all kinds of things. So maybe I should stop here, unless there's something. Hello?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
You accept mine, all glories to Prabhupada.
Very wonderful class, Prabhuji, and very nice review you did, and wonderful story about Bhruguman. That was nice.
Okay, well, I hope everybody liked it, and tomorrow you can begin further with the story of Daksha cursing Lord Shiva.
Yes.
Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to read Srimad Bhagavatam, and please accept my obeisances. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhaevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.